At the MRS Spring Meeting 2022, the materials science community gathers in Honolulu and online to discuss new developments and research in materials science. The meeting program explores a wide range of topics from morphing materials to perovskites, photocatalysts, biomaterials, and much more. And MRS TV is right here bringing you all the latest from the meeting. Aloha and welcome to the Hawaii Convention Center in Honolulu and episode 4 of MRS TV 2022. Delegates are busy attending sessions, panel discussions, and lectures, and we're right here with you, speaking to some of the leaders in the field. In this episode, we hear from 2 of this year's meeting chairs about their highlights of the meeting. The Women in Materials Science and Engineering keynote speaker tells us more about her talk. We hear more about new and exciting developments in materials science from research organizations around the globe. The Semiconductor Research Corporation celebrates its 40th anniversary in 2022. We speak to the MRS Postdoctoral Award winner, Aditya Sood, and hear more about the rise of 2D halide perovskites. As you can see, we have an exciting program coming up, so stay tuned for our first interview. You're watching MRS TV. Thank you for being here, and you guys are the meeting chairs for this conference. It's looking great, a lot of great feedback. How are you guys feeling about it?
It's great. I mean, there was so much excitement about, having a physical meeting on site. And MRS, I think, is one of the first big conferences which is fully open. So the community was really excited. We were really excited, and having the meeting go underway smoothly, and the sessions are in full swing. It feels great. And being in Hawaii is just really amazing. Right. Yeah.
I'm sure that contributed to the turnout.
Definitely. There's a couple of things. So the turnout, Hawaii, of course, is a really amazing place. And the meeting has symposia with the Korean MRS Society, the Japanese MRS Society. So that's brought in a lot of PAC Rim people. But also, because of COVID, we couldn't travel. So there was lots of money that was in the bank, the travel funds, so that helped as well.
Yeah. This is hard work. You guys spent how many years organizing this?
At least 2 years. And actually we got a record number of symposia proposals submitted. People all wanted to organize. And
yeah, I was looking at all the different topics. It's very competitive to actually be on the program too, right? How did you come up with the ideas, and were these really the key trends of the industry?
So the way it works is that about 18 months, 2 years before the meeting, different academics from around the world will propose symposia topics. And so our job was made very difficult because we had so many symposia proposals that, we're limited in space, right? There's only so many talks that the convention center and surrounding hotels can hold. And so we had to, make tough decisions on which ones to invite for the symposia and which ones to reject. But the topics that we've chosen are really topics that are very current, very relevant for both academic research as well as industrial research. And I think that we also have a couple of symposia related to Hawaii and issues and challenges related to being an island and energy supply for the island and all of that sort of stuff.
Yeah. Which ones were you excited about seeing?
So we have a really strong quantum technology set of symposia. That was one of the topical groups. So, it's been a growing trend. And this year, I think at Spring MRS, we have the largest number of quantum-related symposia that we've ever had in MRS. And of course, energy materials, as Nish was just mentioning, that's been a trend that's very important. There's a lot of interest, investment, and people want to see how it all comes together. And of course, material science has a big role, right? And that's you walk around and see some of the symposia. Those are packed rooms because students want to work on it. Students are excited about the ways that they can contribute. Think about energy technologies, quantum technologies, And those rooms, you see everyone just listening, like what's going on? How can I, engage in this topic? And that's been good for us to see because, past few months it was all on paper, creating these topical groups. It felt very abstract, but walking around, you really feel the energy.
Yeah, and talking to a lot of the people, they are very excited about the topics that you guys chose. I think the energy is there. Like when you go around, are you seeing really just how important it is to collaborate in person? And you guys, this is of course a volunteer effort. You had to invest a lot of your own personal time. I'm sure it was fulfilling, but what advice would you give to people, who are maybe looking to do something that, to organize and do something like you did?
It's a very rewarding experience, and I'd strongly encourage people to, think about being an organizer, starting to, put together symposia, and eventually also being a meeting chair. It's a way to shape what the community will focus on for the next years. You see students, they're incoming students, first-year graduate students. This is probably their first conference. A lot of students that I bumped into said, oh, this is my first talk. Or, if they started as a grad student during COVID, they're like, this is my first in-person talk. And I think that, knowing that we've had an impact on their research trajectory, that's just very rewarding.
Well, congratulations, you guys. It's been great work. I think it's been a success so far. So wishing you all the best.
Great. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
And the Women in Material Science and Engineering is a talk that they have every year at the spring meeting, and it's a key feature. I'm joined by the keynote speaker, Songmin Jane Han. Good to see you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah,
Congratulations.
good to see you.
Yes, and
Thank
we understand that you're going to have a two-part talk. One that's going to be technical about the metal graphene nano-layered composites. Tell us about that one first.
Oh, sure, yeah. So my work is in the area of metal graphene nanolayer composites. So these materials have very interesting mechanical properties. So having the graphene layered into the metal, then you can get quite a bit of strengthening effect. And also it is able to, stop crack propagations. So it has interesting mechanical properties for various engineering applications. So I'll be talking about the progress in that field of research that I've been part of for the past probably 10 years or so.
Oh, okay. What are some of the applications that we would recognize?
So the first area is because it's able to stop crack propagations, we're thinking about replacing some of the copper metal serpentine lines for interconnects. So if we replace it with, for example, copper graphene, then we're able to stop crack propagations. And so then we could use it for more extreme, with better reliability for extreme strains that are imposed onto the material. And another application is actually for military materials. So graphene is excellent material for absorbing shock energy. So if we layer metal with graphene, then we think it will be very well suited for some of the bulletproof materials.
And you were actually meeting chair for the MRS spring meeting last year, and it had to be virtual, obviously, because of the pandemic. Isn't it nice to be back in person?
Yes, it's very nice to be
I know
here.
With scientists, it's nice to collaborate in person. It's just a different dynamic, but do you think the hybrid model is something that's going to stay for good?
Yeah. So I think, with this meeting as well, I'm organizing the joint symposium between a Korean Institute of Metals and Materials and MRS. But we have speakers who prefer the virtual setting. So I think certainly the virtual has its advantages. For some of the international speakers, you don't have to travel as.
They probably have demanding schedules, yeah.
So it fits into schedule more easily. So there's benefits there, but I think I would prefer in person.
Well, and you're in Hawaii, so.
Yes, I was glad that I was able to come.
Good, I'm glad. And you do work with the Korean Institute of Metals and Materials.
Yeah.
And that's an important partnership with MRS. Tell us about the benefits of those two societies.
We were able to do a MOU between the two societies. And we have a lot of participants here joining us at the Hawaii meeting. So I think it's providing a nice platform for global interactions for both scientists from both societies. So.
Yeah, no, that's great. And just lastly, this is of course a Women in Materials Science and Engineering talk. How far and how much contributions can we celebrate in terms of women in the field?
Yeah, so I'm actually talking about the the development of the women faculty member, proportions in Korea. So I think Korea has come far ways since when I first joined as a faculty member. So I'm hoping that my explanations will it will serve as hopefully as a motivation to bring up the more participation of women as scientists in the field of material science.
Yeah, and it's nice to see role models like yourself. So thank you so much, Songbin James. Meet you. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Enjoying the rest of the conference.
Yeah. Thank you.
Now let's take a look at some of the latest developments in the world of material science. The Center for Rational Catalyst Synthesis is an NSF industry university cooperative research center. Faculty at 3 universities receive funding from 17 companies to do pre-competitive fundamental research to elucidate the chemical fundamentals of heterogeneous catalyst synthesis.
Catalyst preparation has been called a voodoo science. You have to use the right incantations and spells to get the right formulation. And so our goal in the Center for Rational Catalyst Synthesis is to turn the art of catalyst preparation into a science.
The opportunity to collaborate is a really important aspect of not only what we're doing in research, but the mission of Circus.
The whole concept is we do academic, fundamental research that's driven by technological need and opportunity.
The Center for Rational Catalyst Synthesis is a wonderful place for people to develop new ideas and to cultivate new ideas.
At Tsinghua University in Beijing, research into flexible electronics has been at the cutting edge, focused on the design and fabrication of flexible integrated circuits. Let's take a closer look.
Our group has been working on flexible electronic technology for more than 15 years. More than 180 patents have been authorized. In the past Olympic Winter Games in 2022, we developed a wearable chest strap to help the athletes in monitoring the body temperature, ECG, and location in real time.
Flexible circuit manufacturing technologies produced flexible rotation monitoring system, conformally attaching these systems into rotation parts.
All the work we did required experts from different fields. We cooperate with them in a multidisciplinary approach.
Batch production of lab demos from Tsinghua University can be realized in IFET with 8 small-scale pilot production lines. Tsinghua University and IFET will be the pioneer in bringing flexible electronics to common users, who will benefit a lot from this technology.
The Center for Sustainable Materials and Innovation at the University of California, Berkeley is a new scientific and technological innovation hub aiming to solve some of the most pressing sustainable development goals around materials design and the circular economy.
The Center for Sustainable Material and Innovation started from the very core concept of how we think about material. And our goal is to have a radical shift in the way we design, we engineer, and eventually manufacture material to add the sustainability consideration into play. Today, when we make material, we think about the efficiency, the durability of the material, but there is no information about the sustainability figure of merit. So, for example, how much energy it takes to reuse the material or recycle the material, and what is going to be the environmental impact. So with this center, we want to really rethink the way we make materials and have sustainability as one of the key parameters in the way we design them.
The Center for Integrated Nanotechnologies, a Science National User Facility, offers opportunities for students and researchers at its two New Mexico facilities, Sandia and Los Alamos National Laboratories. Let's find out more.
There is no better place to build a scientific career than a national user facility.
It's a really exciting environment to do research.
CINT stands for the Center for Integrated Nanotechnology. We have two facilities, one at Sandia National Laboratories and our Gateway facility up at Los Alamos National Laboratory.
This is a really exciting time for nanomaterials research, and that's because there's a demand for new materials at the national level.
To get access to CINT, all you need to do is write a 2 or 3 page innovative science proposal or nanoscience proposal that it's reviewed externally, and then once that proposal is accepted, then you're able to access all the capabilities at CINT for free.
What I really enjoy about being in this CINT environment is having experts in anything you can think of right around the corner from your office.
Joining us now is Victor Zernov, and he is with the Semiconductor Research Corporation, and you're celebrating 40 years. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Tell us about, the 40 years. How far has it come, and where are we now?
I'll start with what happened 40 years ago when SRC was formed. The situation in semiconductor industry was pretty grim. United States companies were losing their market share, and there were no reliable talent pipeline coming to the companies because very little US universities were doing research on silicon. So this was kind of crisis situation, and the forming SRC was response to this crisis. And the goal of SRC was to recreate students' pipeline, to position sufficient critical mass of research at universities, to supply US companies both with ideas and with talents. And as a result, US regained its leadership position in semiconductors. A reliable pipeline for talents going to companies was established. And also the first 10 years plan was created. It later evolved and became National Technology Roadmap for Semiconductors, and eventually the International Technology Roadmap for Semiconductors, the famous ITRS, that became master plan for the entire industry. 40 years later, if we talk about what happens today in the context of the new plan, the decadal plan, we realize the need to address other fundamental limits which are linked to sustainability.
And that's part of the next vision for the plan. Exactly. Right? So what are the highlights of that?
This is the 2030 decadal plan for semiconductors that was published last year in 2021, and it describes 5 seismic shifts in the industry and society due to tremendous progress of semiconductors. We need to discover new ways of storing, processing, communicating information. And these are 5 seismic shifts of Decadal plan are about.
A lot to consider, and this is what you'll be talking about in the TED Talk style that you're doing. And you also will have a student poster showcase. Tell us about that as well.
Yes, so the students, as I mentioned, are the future leaders of industry, and they will be taking over, they will be in charge of addressing the 5 seismic shifts of the Decadal plan. And after that, they will be in charge of addressing new challenges that will appear after 2030 and 2040. We realize that community as a whole contributes to future developments. So this year, SRC issued 2030 Broadening Participation Pledge, which addresses the need to increase the diversity in the workforce. We need more female and underrepresented minorities. And actually we need everyone. We need to develop, to discover, to extract talents which are in each of us. And in general, SRC is now working on increasing broadening participation. For example, SRC's big student conference, TechCon, that is taking place in September, will have 50% of female and underrepresented.
That's great. Diversity is such a key to the success of the semiconductor industry. So thank you so much for sharing with us, Victor. Good to meet you.
Good to meet you.
We're MRS TV, your daily news show featuring interviews and discussions on hot topics in material science from this year's MRS meeting. You can catch us around the convention center here in Honolulu, in select hotel rooms, on the virtual MRS meeting platform, and on YouTube. And you can join the conversation on social media. With new content each day of the meeting, make sure to keep watching. Joining us now is Aditya Sood. He is the winner of the MRS Postdoctoral Award. Congratulations.
Thanks so much.
And you know, this is a mouthful, this award that you're being cited for pioneering correlated dynamic structure and transport studies and the discovery of a new electrically triggered metastable phase in an operating device. So tell us what your work is and exactly how you got into it.
Yeah, thanks. So my work is sort of, in a big picture way, it's about dynamic phenomena in materials. So I'm really curious about how materials at the atomic scale transform from one state to another, right? So this is kind of exciting for me for 2 reasons. One is from the application standpoint, it allows you to make quantitative statements about how quickly you can switch a device. So we all want our devices and our phones and laptops to work faster, but the sort of limiting time scale is governed by the material, right? How quickly can you move atoms from one side to another side? So that kind of determines how quickly you can change the state of your device. From a fundamental standpoint, it's kind of exciting to me because it allows us to explore new states of matter. So these states of matter are not things that you can make in the lab by tuning temperature or pressure or composition, but these states of matter are created under some external stimulus like an optical pulse or an electrical pulse and only exist for maybe a few billionths of a second, right? So my work is about trying to come up with ways to visualize and control these really short-lived states in materials. So the citation you refer to is for a particular piece of work that we did recently where my collaborators and I developed this new kind of camera, so to speak, to make atomic scale movies of electronic devices as they're being switched from one state to another. So you can imagine that you have a device which has a 0 state and a 1 state, and the atomic structure of these 2 states is slightly different, ever so slightly different. So this new technique now allows us to actually visualize how the atoms move from state A to state B and what happens in between, which is the part that I'm excited about. And then we also are able to, for the first time, correlate the changes in the structure of the material, so movement of the atoms versus time, to how the electronic properties change, so how the electronic resistivity changes as a function of time. So we can actually sort of make a one-to-one statement about how this device actually works. So we kind of use this new kind of technique, which I can talk more about later, to image a new state in a certain material, which kind of has a weird existence because it shares some similarities with the initial state but then some other similarities with the final state, but it's neither of the two. So it's some sort of a metastable state, so to speak, because it only exists while the material is excited with this electrical pulse. So it's kind of an interesting state of matter, so to speak.
Yeah, and you talked about this, the movies part in
That's
your
right.
talk.
Yeah.
What was the biggest message or the takeaways that you want people to get from it?
Yeah, so I think the part that I'm really excited about is this idea that, for quite a few years we've had this field called ultrafast physics, which is the physics of systems excited by light primarily. And then there's this whole separate field of device engineering. As electrical engineers, we like to make and characterize electronic devices. But what's exciting to me is now that we can explore for the first time the intersection of these two fields. So we can look at ultrafast dynamics of atoms inside operating devices. So the message of my talk yesterday was, now that we have this new kind of camera, so to speak, we can make quantitative statements about how devices function. How quickly they can possibly transition from one state to another. So what's the fastest possible time scale on which you can switch an electronic bit from 0 to 1, which is something we all want. We all want our laptops to work faster. The other statement we can make is about potentially new ways to come up with energy efficient switching. So how can you use the least amount of energy to make something go from a 0 to a 1 state. So I think these are sort of the two main takeaways.
Very cool, amazing work. Looking forward to seeing how it progresses beyond your postdoctoral work.
Thank you.
So congratulations again.
Thanks so much. I appreciate it.
And joining me now is Aditya Mohite of Rice University, and this is a very interesting topic. A lot of people are talking about this now, perovskites.
Yes.
And your talk on Wednesday is titled The Rise of 2D Halide Perovskites. It's a hot topic for a number of years now, but what is the interest really in this two-dimensional class of material?
Yeah, so the two-dimensional halide perovskites or hybrid perovskites is actually a subclass of a bulk perovskite, which is the three-dimensional one. And this has also been around since quite some time, and there was a lot of work done actually by Japanese researchers in 1980s, and then David Midzi and Sherry Kagan, they did work on this in the 90s. And then it was all, not much was going on till they actually started working on the halide perovskites. And so what this material is that it's a halide perovskite, but instead of being a three-dimensional structure, it's a two-dimensional structure. And that comes about because when you are synthesizing this material, in addition to all the things you would put to make a three-dimensional system, you put a long organic molecule, which doesn't quite fit in terms of the size or the charge. And so it tends to form a layered structure. And so that's where the two-dimensional form comes about. And so because of this two-dimensional form, you have a case where you have a perfectly two-dimensional lattice, but it gives a lot of advantages in terms of the properties and also in terms of durability, which is one of the biggest challenges that the 3D halide perovskites are facing today.
And I know one of the big applications in this area would have been solar.
Yeah.
And I guess how far along do you think the challenges are to overcoming and getting it more common?
Right. So as I said, that one of the biggest issues is durability for the three-dimensional perovskites. And so in 2016, we had a really nice paper which showed that the two-dimensional perovskites are much more superior in terms of durability. Although the efficiency of these systems was lower, but you can make a solar cell that is much more durable and can last for much longer. And so that's kind of triggered a renaissance of these 2D materials. And so now the state-of-the-art solar cells that are used for halide perovskites, which have this 25-26%, they have some amount of two-dimensional perovskites which are incorporated in different ways. And so our efforts in our lab have always been to try to understand more about the structure and the property of these two-dimensional perovskites. How do you really make them pure? How do you get good properties so that their efficiency can be as much as the 3D while retaining the durability that they have and things like this. Yeah.
So if you were to predict how far along are we in terms of trying to see these in devices that we use, how far along are we?
So I think that, we have and I'm going to talk about this, we have a recent result where we've now shown that we can make these perovskites in films with high purity, which means that if I'm trying to make a certain certain thickness of these layers that I have in the perovskites, and if I make a film, I put them in solutions and I make a film of this, do you get the same, or do you have to, are there heterogeneities in there? And so we've shown that we can do that. And what we've also shown is we can take the two-dimensional perovskites like this, combine it with the 3D perovskites to make heterostructures with desired compositions and energy levels. And we can get stabilities now of more than 2000 hours under harsh conditions that are required. And these have efficiencies of almost 25%. So I feel that we have a big breakthrough in that sense, and that's going to be a very interesting result, which is in review right now. So,
okay, well, hopefully a few more years.
I hope so. I mean, I think there's lots of companies and there's lots of commercial interest. So I imagine that another 5 years and we should see some products coming out.
Okay, wonderful. It's exciting times.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
And that's it for our final day here at the 2022 MRS Spring Meeting in Honolulu. But remember, you can catch up on anything you missed online on the virtual platform and on YouTube. We'll be back for the virtual MRS experience with another show on May 23rd. So make sure to tune in again for more MRS content. We hope you enjoyed watching our shows. Safe travels home and aloha.